Re-Zero, Side Story, Pristella Reconstruction Journal No. 2, Chapter 1.
It was an unexpected request that came to Garfield. Garfield, you want my amazing self's help? ? No. That's right. The famous master of the Wallachian Empire, the Kurgan of 8 Arms, has been successfully defeated. A man of valor who still devotes himself to the reconstruction of the city. Let's meet Garfield Tinselsomer, the cloud-bearer of the new age who heralds the dawn of a new era. By all means. Then she clasped her hands together, bowed her head, and asked for help in a flat-footed posture. Garfield frowned and touched his sharp canine teeth with his fingers as he thought about it. It's been 10 days since the important events surrounding the Watergate city of Pristella came to an end and Natsuki Subaru and his party left for the Far East. Garfield, who had stayed behind in Pristella, was helping with the reconstruction and sharpening his sense of smell in order to protect the peace of the city. Even now, Pristella has many of her residents needing protection, including Otto. If they followed Subaru's concern, there was no guarantee that the witch cult would not come back to haunt them. In this sense, Garfield, while contributing greatly to the city's heavy lifting, remained vigilant in the shadows to prevent a stronger malice from turning its poisonous fangs on the city again. Nevertheless, contrary to Garfield's determination, most of the disturbances that occurred in the city were small, and could be settled by discussion among the city people. There was nothing to complain about. If nothing happens, it's for the best, that's what Garfield thinks. But on the other hand, if nothing happened to Pristella, Garfield wanted to accompany Subaru and the others who were tackling a dangerous journey. There was definitely a part of Garfield that felt that way. As Garfield was struggling with the anguish of his situation and his own role in it, Garfield Summer, and the person who looked up at Garfield dexterously with her head bowed and her hands together. Liliana, the diva of Pristella, had a request for Garfield. Carrying her beloved instrument, the lyre, and encouraging the people of the city with her voice, Liliana is very busy, and is needed throughout the city in a different way than Garfield. No matter how gloomy the faces of the people, when they hear her songs, they are instantly soothed. Garfield was impressed by her performance and her solid voice, and he couldn't help but listen to her. When she wasn't singing, however, he was still dismayed at how poorly Liliana handled herself. Anyway, what Liliana brought to him was very welcome to Garfield, who was searching for his role in this city. Anyway, Liliana, the remains of the witch. In order to preserve them, they are enshrined underground in the city. Please, please, please help us, Garfield Summer. If you could lend it to us, it would be a tremendous help. Liliana asks for help with a low-key attitude, and Garfield ruminates on her words. The witch's remains are said to be the remains of a real witch who died in this city hundreds of years ago. It was thought that even the existence of the remains was a myth, but one of the purposes of the witch cult's attack on this city the other day was to take the witch's remains. Fortunately, the witch's remains were not stolen, but their existence and the fact that they were being targeted became clear. It is the foundation of the Watergate city, and if it is taken away, the city will be in danger of being destroyed. Garfield, so I understand why you want to make it safer for everyone. Abirabi's kneecap is important for everything, you know. Liliana, that's right. That's why I went up to ask for help directly on behalf of Kiritaka-san, who is having a hard time deciding on replacements for the Council of 10. Liliana bites her tongue grandly in front of Garfield, who is convinced of the purpose of the request. While the diva was writhing in agony, Garfield twisted his neck and said, "But is it okay, Garfield? The witch's remains are the most important treasure in this town. My amazing self is a stranger mixed up in the handling of such an essential treasure." Liliana, then there's nothing to worry about. Garfield Summer and the other candidates for the throne have done their best to protect Pristella, and it would be pointless to doubt them now. If you try to hide it and do it within your own family, and it fails and the town goes down, you'll have no face to save. Garfield, well, that's a nice, clean story. Worry is just a hole in the ground when it goes too far. Liliana's answer and Kiritaka's idea of instructing her to do so were both correct. Then, Garfield's answer was obvious. Garfield, all right. Aside from visiting Otto Bro, I've been doing little more than cleaning up debris and stuff. I'll do it, Liliana. Oh. That's what I'm talking about. Good answer. Thank you very much, Garfield. So what exactly do you want me to do to help, Liliana? It is. Hearing Liliana's praise of his good form, Garfield snapped his fangs and asked. In response, Liliana puffed out her nose and gently pointed to the ground. Then, in front of a quizzical Garfield, she says it proudly, Liliana, underground, in the depths of the canals, in the great temple there. It's there that will open the way to the witch's remains. It's the beginning of a great adventure.
Chapter 2.
Garfield, so this is the entrance to the great temple. Garfield's green eyes narrowed as he looked at the iron door embedded in the wall at the end of the huge pile of rubble. It was the basement of the city hall, which had collapsed and completely lost its shape. Pristella was a city of water, with waterways running throughout the city, and this scene was supported by the existence of underground canals. Many of the shelters that were used to evacuate the city's residents during the witch cult's attacks were also built during the construction of these underground canals, indicating that the city had been prepared for flooding from the beginning. In other words, the doors and passageways leading to the depths of this underground canal have also been in place since the city was first built. According to the literature, this city was built more than 400 years ago, when witches were still rampant throughout the land. However, at that time, the understanding of magic was not as advanced as it is now, and moreover, the building techniques were not yet mature. And yet, this design is marvelous. What's with the face? Do you not understand the beauty of the design concept of this city? If so, I must say I'm saddened. And then, behind Garfield, who was clearing away the debris around the door, there was a terse, logical muttering. When he turned to listen to it, the person who had been muttering raised a shapely eyebrow. It was a small figure. A dwarf, even shorter than Garfield, though Garfield was not a tall man. The man with long green hair and a black cloak was Ezo Cadna, one of the people who would accompany them on our journey to the Great Temple. Originally, he was from Felt's camp, one of the candidates for the royal selection. He was not in the Watergate city at the time of the recent incident, but he seems to have come to the city's aid, replacing his master, Felt, and Reinhardt, who had gone to the capital to escort the Sin Archbishop. Garfield, I'm not sure what you can do, though. Ezo, are you sure you don't want me to take that as a challenge? I'll tell you what, Ezo Cadna, the Grey, try to act like a gentleman all the time, but I don't want you to think I'm so weak that I can't smile at an insult. Garfield's cheeks twisted as he met Ezo's gaze, who stared at him with a strong will despite his childish face. Their gazes crossed each other's, and a sense of urgency built up in the cold underground where the sound of running water dominated. However, what's the matter with you two? You're so tense. Get along better, little ones. Ezo, but, Garfield, and then a slap struck both of them on the head as they stared at each other, and each of the two people who were struck let out a cry of pain. As they stared at their opponents to see what they would do, the vicious dog face opened its big mouth and laughed. Ezo, what are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Don't get mad at me for fighting at work. And don't bite the little guy's hand when the kid says something. Ezo, goo. You two, if you insult me about my size, no mercy, huh? If that's the case, Sensei, you have to be even more firm. You may be able to make your way to the remains in question, but beyond that, it's up to you. Ezo, When he said that, Ezo fell silent with a difficult frown on his face. The person who can do this to Ezo is Ricardo Welkin, a huge beastman who looks down at him. Ricardo is carrying a large machete on his back and scratching his bare chest. Like Ezo, he too is accompanying them on their journey to the Great Temple in the underground canals. Of course, Garfield knew that he could count on him if it got rough. However, there was one element of anxiety that put a crack in that trust. It was, Garfield, it hasn't been long since you lost one of your arms. Can you keep up like that? Ricardo, oh, my, you're worried about me? You have a kind heart, don't you? Did you use that kindness to fool around with my Mimi, brother? Garfield, I'm not nice to her, and I don't even like her. When he bit into the mocking remark, Ricardo waved his arm and said, "Just kidding, just kidding." The waving right arm from the elbow down was missing, and a metal hook had been attached in its place. The wound on Ricardo's right arm was also an honorable injury he received during the recent battle with the witch cult. However, the term honorable injury is no consolation to those who have actually been injured. The fact was that he had lost his arm and could no longer act the way he used to. Garfield could only imagine how much of a blow it would be for a mercenary, whose profession was to fight for a living, to no longer be able to fight the way he used to. Garfield was really anxious to accompany him on the journey, not knowing what to expect. "Ricardo, brother, that thinking of yours is not anxiety, it's worry." Garfield, because, Ricardo, idiot, I'm not kidding. I mean it. I mean it. When Garfield tried to argue with him, Ricardo dared to block his mouth with the hook of his right hand. The dull, rugged metal was no less fierce than his strong arm. In other words, he claims he can fight. Garfield fell silent as he realized his intentions. In fact, no matter what Garfield said, it was only an outside opinion. If Ricardo himself insists that he can fight without being dragged down by the loss of his arm, that is all that matters. Ricardo has been a mercenary for a long time, and he knows what he is capable of. "Ezo, I was absent from the city at the time of the recent battle. So, I will defer to both of you on this occasion." Then Ezo, who had absorbed the conversation that had just taken place, nodded calmly to him. Seeing his attitude, Ricardo's smile deepened, saying, "Please, Sensei." "Ezo, I'm not used to being called Sensei, but I'll get used to it. More importantly, if you're worried about Ricardo Dono's arm, don't you have another problem to worry about?" Ricardo, well, that's right. That's a bigger problem." Short arms and thick arms, Ezo and Ricardo, each with their arms crossed, made the statement. Under their gazes, Garfield looked at the pile of rubble that had been moved with a sigh. Then, there was a girl sitting on the rubble, playing with the strings of her tools of trade in a single-minded effort. "Liliana, I'm filled with energy. I can feel my imagination and creativity fluttering inside me. I have a feeling that a mysterious, special, money-scented excitement awaits me ahead. Listen to me. Hold me. Great temple." Garfield, shut the hell up, huh? Liliana was about to get excited and start playing her lyre when Garfield walked up to her and flicked her forehead with his finger. Liliana recoiled from the blow and turned her teary eyes in protest to Garfield. "Liliana, what are you doing?" "Sudden violence." "That's violence, Garfield, you haven't changed at all, have you? You're not really going to follow me, are you?" "Viva-san?" "Liliana, no. Of course not. A great temple that exists beneath the city. The importance of it, and the expectations and fears of the legend, there's no choice but to go." Waving her hands, neck and feet dexterously from side to side, Liliana pleaded for desperate accompaniment. Garfield looked at the two behind him for help with her attitude, but Ricardo and Ezo shrugged their shoulders. Garfield sighs as he realizes that he is alone. "Anyway, Garfield, my amazing self, Ricardo, the little wizard, and the diva, that's the group that is going to face the underground, right?" "Ricardo, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like we've got a lot of colors." "Ezo, but Garfield Dono and Ricardo Dono are in the vanguard, I'm in the back as a wizard, and Miss Liliana is in the back, and Miss Liliana is the chronicler? If you think about it, we're not a bad force." "Liliana, yes, leave it to me. I'm going to feel your activities with my eyes, ears, nose, and my whole body, and I'm going to make it into a poem that will be sung for generations to come." Garfield stroked his fangs at the impetus of Liliana's coughing, slapping her thin chest forcefully. To be honest, Garfield was uneasy about taking someone who is not equipped to deal with the situation underground, where you never know what might happen. However, the fact that Liliana would be accompanying them as a representative of the city was a natural outcome considering that what lay ahead was Pristella's most important secret. Also, Liliana's declaration that she would write a song about them had an irresistible appeal to Garfield, who adored heroic tales and biographical literature. "Ricardo, well, you don't have to worry about that. Even though it had been closed for a long time, it was still in the basement of a city where many people live. It's not like some villains hide out deep in the mountains. Ezo, I agree with you. I'm probably the only one who has a job. The witch's remains, if true, could be considered a catalyst of tremendous power and value. Considering the impact on the city's water quality and geology, it's really a challenging task. Ricardo and Ezo also expressed their own views on this task. At the moment, neither of them seemed to have any intention of turning Liliana away, and Garfield's mind was made up. Garfield, all right. Let's go. The captains are still working hard. Let's get some work done so our amazing selves don't get laughed at by the returning captains. Liliana, no. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. Let's get out there, Liliana called out, and Garfield pushed open the closed iron door. The door opened with a rather vigorous creaking sound, and the four were greeted by a passage leading to the great underground temple. And just when Garfield thought the dusty air was blowing in from the back of the passage, Garfield, huh? The four of them were sucked headlong into the darkness beneath their feet, leaving a stupid voice in their wake.